Chapter 18. "We'd better get going," said Max. The blanket he'd sent last night was spread in the middle of the room. On top of it were the leftovers and bread and cheese, and a small wooden box the size of a fist, the lid carved with an elaborate tree. Isadora picked it up and slipped it in the pocket of her dress, then stuffed the blanket and food into the market bag. She tied the sleeves of Buelo's sweater together at the cuffs, slipped her head through the loop, and stretched the hem around her, tying the corners in a knot behind her back, fashioning a snug sling across her chest. Then she tucked the kitten inside. How did she know how to do such a thing? They left the tower and descended single file down the steep, narrow path to the river, hidden beneath thick foliage and bottle brush. The muddy ground sucked at their shoes. Max glanced back at Isadora, who had already dropped behind. She had tucked her left arm into the sling, probably to pet the kitten, and used her right hand to grab branches to steady herself. He hoped she wouldn't slow him down. When they reached the flat banks along the river, they walked until the spire of Our Lady of Sorrows was only a speck in the distance. In the land of 100 bridges, there were now fewer, and they were much farther apart. Max was grateful that there were no signs that they'd been followed, and that the weather seemed content for now. Except for the birds, the only sounds were Isadora's measured breathing, Lola's panting, and an occasional meow. As the day dragged on, Isadora lagged farther behind, and once stopped altogether to choose a pebble from the stream. Max started back to collect her. If she made a habit of stopping, he might never get to the Guardabarrera and back in time for tryouts. But she didn't. After that, she kept up. At last, by late afternoon, they came to a patch of dense privet bushes, exactly where Buelo had marked on the map. Max edged through them, holding branches aside for Isadora, until they reached a protected spot next to the river. "We'll stay here for tonight." He spread their blankets on the ground, side by side. Then he retrieved water, put some food out for the animals, and handed Isadora a torta. He watched her pull tiny bits of bread and ham, giving every other pinch to the kitten or to Lola. "You should eat. You must be hungry, and there's plenty." Isadora shrugged. She sat on the blanket and looked upstream, rubbing her left wrist. She still hadn't said a word. Was she afraid of him? "You need to eat," he said gently, handing her more bread and ham, "so you can keep up your strength." She nibbled in silence, avoiding Max's eyes. The world around them slowly faded and turned the color of slate gray, until it was hard to tell where the river ended and the sky began. In the calm of the evening, Max's earlier frustrations settled. Even at Isadora's slow pace, they'd still make it to the safe spot, or they'd still made it to the safe spot before dark. No one appeared to be following them, and in 2 days' time they'd arrive at the Guardabarrera's cavern. Max could get his answers and head back home. He sat across from Isadora. "I should tell you about the next guardian so you know what to expect." She leaned forward. "I've actually never met her," said Max, "but Buelo, my grandfather, told me all about her. I didn't believe she was real. I always thought she was just a character in a fantastic bedtime story that my Buelo liked to tell." The shadows grew darker. Crickets began their songs. The slow slap of water against the bank kept rhythm. Like the tinkling of glass chimes, Isadora's small voice carried, "I like stories." Max smiled in the darkness. "Me too." Isadora took off the sweater sling and folded it for a pillow and put her head down next to Lola's. The kitten curled into a little ball on her chest. Max lay on the blanket with his arms beneath his head. He imagined himself in the cottage with Buelo and could almost smell the dried rosemary in the firebox. Far away and hidden there is a secret bridge and a peculiar gatekeeper, a Guardabarrera. Her name is Yadra. Some think she's a troll or a witch. But don't worry, it's probably not true. Buelo met her and she served him tea in a china cup. So how could she be unkind? Max thought about all the years Buelo had told him that story, letting it sink into his very being. Had he been preparing Max to be a guardian all this time? More, Isadora whispered. She lives beneath the bridge in a cavern. Buelo said it is very crowded because she collects so many things. You can go there if you lost something, but very few do. He didn't tell Isadora everything. He left out the part about holding tomorrow in the palm of your hand, but he continued with the legend until Isadora's breathing deepened. He pulled up the edge of the blanket, making a snug cocoon around her in the kitchen. And the kitten. She looked even younger when she was sleeping. Max was just about to settle himself when a branch cracked. Lola's head popped up and her ears perked. Something thudded on the ground and twigs snapped. Max froze and held his breath. Then, just as suddenly, the night was silent again. He exhaled. It was probably an animal on a nightly forage. He'd slept outside many times with Papa, and there were always night noises. This had to be a safe place to sleep, he assured himself. Otherwise, it wouldn't have been marked on the map. A bright streak shot across the sky. Max could hear Chuy in his head. "A shooting star! Quick, make a wish! It will come true!" A few weeks ago, Max would have wished for a new pair of volantes, or to go to the football clinic, and to make the village team. Today his life was muddled. He wanted to meet his mother and show her that he was every bit a worthy boy. He wanted to return the compass and bring her home so Papa could stop looking and believe in happy endings again. And he wanted to retrieve proof that he was born. If he couldn't find his mother, he could still get Isadora to the next safe place and prove to Papa he was capable of doing things on his own. And if the guardabarrera thought he was true of heart, maybe she would take him on a journey upriver so he might hold tomorrow in the palm of his hand. Staring into the vast sky, he felt small and insignificant. Papa wouldn't approve of wishing on a star, but Max crossed his fingers anyway. I wish to know what will become of me and if the path I'm on is leading to a place I want to go.